All right, Laura, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. Just y'all, just in the pre-convert or the pre-recording conversation, I'm already like, okay, Laura, let's just hang out and talk about all the things. So let's start there. Tell us, I've already gotten to know you just a smidge, but tell us about you, tell us what you do and why you got into the work that you're doing.
Well, I had a very long career with corporations, right? I had very big jobs. I'm both an engineer and I have an MBA, so I have that dual, academic background that allowed me to go into lots of different sectors and do
Yeah.
lots of different jobs. And I realized at 45, I realized that the only thing common for all those jobs was that I was choosing my projects and I was building things with people, with CEOs, basically. I was number two of CEOs, entrepreneurs at big corporations or entrepreneurs at smaller ones. And basically now I do that on a remote, I mean, not in a, salaried position, not as an employee. And I realize that I like to think more than I like to do, even though I know how to do a lot of things. But what I really love to do is to ping pong and be the sounding board for those leaders and help them get clarity of decision and then focus of execution. And so that's how I became what I decided to call a sparring partner for CEOs.
I love that. I was like, right before I hear, I was like, I want you to spar with me. Show me how this goes. I love this. So, maybe paint us a little picture for those who are like, okay, I kind of get what it's like we call our bestie and we've got like, we're using them as a sounding board. But what's maybe different than maybe when we're just like checking in with our besties to actually have a sparring partner? What's a little bit different about that?
What's different is that, maybe with your bestie, you have like be hard or be kind today, depending on your mood.
Uh-huh.
But most people have only be kind, right?
Uh-huh.
And so for CEOs and for entrepreneurs in general, for business owners, they can talk to their spouse if they have worries because they don't want them to worry as well. They
Yeah.
generally cannot speak to their employees because they don't want to show vulnerability to most of their employees. Even if they have co-founders, they might not be comfortable. Actually, I intervene a lot in founders conflict or mediation.
Mm,
And then if they have investors, they don't want them to worry either. So basically, the founder is always wearing a mask and
mm.
he or she is never themselves. And so I'm the person they can be 100% honest with, and I'm going to be 100% honest back. And that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, we all need this, obviously. Yeah. And also, when you were talking, the thing that came up for me was I was getting a massage once, and the massage therapist said, okay, as they're like going into like this deep knot that I had, they're like, do you want this to be relaxing or effective? Right. So that's basically,
Exactly.
you're like, listen, do you want to have a nice conversation where you feel coddled, or do you want to
Yeah.
have an effective one?
Exactly. That's
Mm,
I love that. Actually,
yeah.
I'm gonna steal that from you.
Permission.
For
Listen,
my
you already
thank you.
gifted me so much before we hit record that, yeah, whatever. Take it all, Laura. Take it.
Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of the work that you do talk about, one of the biggest limitations to a company's growth is the leaders themselves. So
Yes.
let's like just go there. Like, what do you
Yeah.
see as the patterns or the blind spots where maybe founders and CEOs and leaders are maybe holding themselves, but like maybe unknowingly even holding themselves back?
Yeah. What I find is that a lot of leaders manage, but they don't lead.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure whether that makes sense to you. Like they get
Tell
busy all the time, and they're actually super busy.
me.
They
Hmm.
don't take the time to step back. Just finding 2 hours a month because this is how it goes with me with the CEOs company. We talk 1 hour every week or 1 hour every 2 weeks, and even finding that time is
Right.
is very hard for them
Hmm.
because they don't lead, they manage. So basically, they get their hands, they get their head down and they plow through and they work a lot. I'm not saying they don't do anything, but maybe it's not the right directions. Maybe they miss some weak signals from the market, from their customers, from their competition, from within the company as well. And
Hmm.
so I allow them this hour every week or every 2 weeks to step back and talk about what's bothering them. And one of the CEOs actually called me the osteopath. I don't know how you say it in. It's not a physical therapist, it's somebody that cracks your bone. Not a chiropractor either, but
Uh-huh.
something like that. Where because she said she came for her shoulder and I made her ankle crack because the
Yeah.
symptom was not the cause.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah,
So
like the number of times in a session, a client is like, oh, I did not know this is where we were going to go with this, right? But that's the
Exactly.
beauty of this work. It's like you start scraping the surface, and then, and this is, here's what I want to say about this is that this is the value of going into the thing, right? Because you're like, oh, I don't really want to talk about this. But in going into
Yeah.
that, that's where you find your way to something that you didn't even know needed your attention.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do. And
Yeah.
I do that with leaders. We start with their business, obviously,
Hmm.
but we always at some point end up with a block, a cognitive bias, a blind spot, as you mentioned, that they haven't seen, or something that they know they should be dealing with, but they don't want to for
Hmm.
various reasons, depending on what it is.
Hmm.
So most of the time, it comes down to a relationship issue, like a communication issue, something that they're not comfortable doing, or and even I have to say, fear of success is also a big thing with
Yeah.
entrepreneurs,
Uh-huh.
especially the female ones.
Yeah.
The fear of success, fear of being more successful than my partner, fear of being more successful than my siblings, or the how do I, how can I be a success and still be discreet? That is also a big one.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Can we go there? Because success and tolerance is such a thing,
It
right? And
is,
we
isn't
don't think
it?
about that. It's like anything, it's like because our brains are like, I aspire to that. I want
Yeah,
that thing. And we miss that is a whole skill set to receive that thing. It's a whole
it
skill set
is.
in general to receive. And there, this is related, right? Relation like
Absolutely.
efforting, pushing out, going forward. But
Yes.
to receive success
To receive
requires
success
a different muscle.
and
Yeah.
and to and also to be in the spotlight, and it goes in
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
They're sometimes they're afraid of the success because they're afraid of being in the spotlight, and they're afraid
Hmm.
of being in the spotlight because for women it's often because they've been taught that nice girls don't make noise, obviously.
Yeah.
And but even for men, it's they don't want the hassle, they don't want the bother, they don't think they're worth it. They don't want to be called by old pals asking for money, whichever. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah. So how do we like, I mean, without giving away everything, like what is something that for the person who's listening who's like, oh yes, yes, check, check, and check. What's like a place where you start, or like what's some of the foundational things that you help people move through that particular block?
well, when I find a block,
Hmm.
first of all, the first step is acknowledging that it is a block, and
Yeah.
that's already a big part of it. But if a person is listening to this and say, yes, I acknowledge I have fear of success,
Yeah.
what I would suggest doing is trying to find the last time you were successful, what happened?
Hmm.
Remember the last time you were successful. I mean, it could be that you got a great grade when you were, in college. It could be
Hmm.
that you had an athletic, success. I mean, it can be anything. It can be that you performed in front of the whole school and everybody thought you were great. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter on what, even if it's not business, even if you're 50 like me today, or and
Mhm.
it happened to you at 15. Um, and remember what happened to you then. And if you felt a teeny tiny bit well, or to feel that praise, try and hang on to that feeling and remember
Yeah.
that that's also what you're going to get. That's the
Yeah.
first step. The second step is to try and understand what's the fear. Is it the fear of the spotlight? Is it the fear of because you feel you don't deserve it, or because you're going to be better than whoever
Yeah. Uh-huh.
in your entourage? And try to pinpoint that,
Yeah, I
because
noticed when
then,
you were saying that and you were kind of prompting, like going back to, I don't even know if you said to earliest memories, but that's where you're like talking about school. And I thought about,
yeah,
and I was like, oh, what I felt coming up a block was like, um, sort of the word that came to my mind was othering, right? Like, it's like, oh, you're better than like, oh, little Miss
yeah,
Perfect, or now you think that
yeah,
you're better than, yeah, okay.
yeah,
Well, listen,
yeah.
got my sparring today. Thank you, Laura. Already starting. Yeah, okay. And I like the other thing that you said, like also hold on to what was the feel good there, right?
Yeah,
Because
because
we
there
forget
is.
to clock the both and. Our brains are so wired for survival that like, ooh, othering, ooh, fear, deserving, unworthiness, that felt bad, hide from it. And it filters out the immaterial part, which is, oh, it also felt good. It also
Yeah,
was connective in some ways also. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I'm talking mostly about the adolescent, the teenage years, because that's when, we have the time to do sports or be good at academics or do music or performing or whatever. And when we have those moments of, success, even if
Yeah.
it's a tiny success that today we don't even remember it if we don't think hard about it.
Right.
But, the first time I got applause when I was doing musical theater, it was like, wow, I did it. And that is
Yeah.
the one thing I try and remember when I know I'm blocking myself because it doesn't matter that I'm sparring with people. Like I have a
Turns
sparring
out we're
partner
still
and stuff.
human, Laura. It's so weird
Exactly,
and offensive. Yes.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So
Hmm.
um, so yeah, and that feeling of being recognized for doing something good,
Yeah.
everybody has felt it sometime at
Yeah.
one, even if only once. So
Yeah.
you need to remember that it feels good.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the, before I go to my next question, anything else on the
Now go ahead.
success and intolerance?
No,
Yeah,
go
we've
ahead.
got it. Okay. So based on the work you do, I imagine that you'd agree with the statement I'm about to say, which is like the right mindset isn't one of those, oh, here's like a nice thing to have. Like this is a foundational requirement. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, what are some of those powerful mindset shifts that you help leaders make that actually start to create momentum right away in their business or their lives?
Well, the apart from the fear of success, one thing is also the delegation part. Like you don't have to do everything on your own
Mm-hmm.
because and that's really something that is ingrained in a lot of entrepreneurs that you hear a lot of entrepreneurs saying, oh, but my employees don't, they can do things right because they don't invest themselves as much as I do.
Hmm.
Of course they don't. It's your business, it's not theirs.
Yeah.
And it's you trade their time and knowledge and hands sometimes for money, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that should be fine, but it needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be
Yeah.
the delegation part, the letting go of I don't do everything myself. That is a
Yeah.
huge part of what I do as well. That is
Yeah.
a huge block for most founders who don't know how to find the right people to help them do what they don't have the time or where their presence is not necessary anymore, even if in the beginning they were doing everything, because I deal a lot with founders,
Yeah.
so they were there at the beginning, so
Yeah.
it's at the beginning they were doing everything, and so little by little they have to let go, and at some point they don't let go enough, or they
Yeah.
surrounded themselves with not the right people, but that was actually maybe on purpose so that they didn't have to let go. I mean, it can
Right,
be
there's like a
a
whole codependence in it.
yeah,
Like, I mean, as
exactly.
you're talking about it, I'm actually thinking, I mean, for those who are listening who are not founders, this is life stuff too. Think about the parents in the room, right?
Oh
Who are
yeah,
like, oh, I can do it best, I can do it faster, and I do it with the most like passion and commitment, right? Like that is analogous, like that is parallel to what CEOs and founders feel is
absolutely.
right. So then you don't let go. And then so you enable, like you just continue the cycle of, well, then the kid never learns how to do whatever the uptake of the responsibility was because you always were doing it for him. And then it's that cycle of like, then the mindset remains, I have to do everything. I'm the only one who gets anything done. But it's this vicious cycle where, yeah, there's going to be that discomfort, right? And as the leaders, it's always you go first, right? There's going to be that discomfort of, can I have enough space that I'm going to let somebody do it? And yes, in the beginning, it might not be as well as I would have done it. It might not be with the same level of enthusiasm. And that's just the beginning. That's not like it's going to stay that way forever.
Exactly. And sometimes it's even going to be done better than you. And that's no, but I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be done differently, of
Uh-huh.
course.
Yeah.
But sometimes that difference, that new perspective, can
Yeah.
bring in something new that will unleash, something you hadn't even expected. So it's
Yeah.
also accepting, and that is another block, that
Uh-huh.
somebody can do a better job than you at something. It's
Uh-huh.
also accepting you're not perfect and you don't know
Yeah.
everything. And that's
And
another
especially,
block.
I'm thinking of like CEOs and leaders, that's like a double-edged sword because at the same time, where they're like, I want my people to, yeah, because exactly what you said earlier, the number of times I'm coaching somebody, a CEO, on they don't have the same level of investment and ideas and innovation. I'm like, of course they don't. Like, that is
Of
not, they
course
would
they
have
don't.
their own business if they would be the CEO of their
Exactly.
own company. You don't actually want that. So as much as on one hand they want that, then it's like, well, then when the people do rise to the occasion and they might actually be better than you, then you're bumping up against Yeah. So there's like this balance of I want them to be more invested and skilled at it, but I don't want them to be better than me. But
Yeah,
they
but
really
that's what
do. Yeah.
that's the difference between managing and leading. They can be
Yeah.
great at doing today's business because that's what
Mm,
you delegate. You delegate today's business. And the
mm,
CEO or the founder should step up and look at tomorrow's business. And that's what a leader does. And
uh-huh.
that's why they need to get rid of the running the business to be building the business.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's important for any of the leaders and CEOs and founders listening. That was a big piece right there. Yeah.
Mm.
Ooh. Okay. Um, So here's another thing. Like we know, like a lot of people come to high performers, like they know that they're blocking themselves, but they don't know how to stop doing it. And you kind of mentioned that before, where it's like, I know I should be doing something, or I know I shouldn't be doing this thing, but I am not changing it. So what's your approach to help them get out of their own way without it feeling like here's another pressure, here's another to do, here's another like hustle and grind thing that I have to be working on?
Well, it's great that you mentioned the pressure, because today, in today's day and age, with social media, and you have a lot of examples and a lot of pressure of this is the framework to do this, this is the method to do that. And
Yep.
my way is actually there. I have a toolbox, obviously, everybody does, every one of us does, who accompanies people, whether in life or in business. But I don't have a sequence of events, and I don't have the tools you're forced to use, because a lot of the leaders actually they're not getting into a relationship with a coach because they're afraid they're going to be put into a syringe that is not them, like they're going to be forced into corners that they're not comfortable with.
Hmm.
So the first thing is to try and set some different habits. For
Hmm.
example, I was accompanying a leader actually in Miami,
Hmm.
um, and she couldn't get a hand of her schedule. Like her schedule was hectic. It's a solopreneur, so she has
Yeah.
freelancers working with her, but she's alone on her business, and it's getting quite big. Um and so I said to her one simple thing. It was, try and get out of your head and out of your house. She was working from home,
Mhm.
30 minutes on the beach every day. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter how you do it. She managed to do it at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
But do it, because this is what, and no phone, nothing. I tried that with her because I could feel that she was so tense and have, notifications all over the place. And when I told her maybe you should switch them off, she didn't feel comfortable with that. So I said, you can walk 30 minutes on the beach with no phone. And just that gave her the peace of mind to start tackling her day differently. So it
Mhm.
really matters to listen to people and listen to what makes them tick and what they're not ready to do. And maybe she will be ready to do more, but you need to start small.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, again, because obviously this is all about me and my coaching session right now, Laura. So I'm just thinking about myself as you were
Of
talking.
course.
And I was like, oh, because something I will, and I know I'm not the only one because I coach a lot of leaders and CEOs and business owners, but we sort of pride ourselves on like efficiency and multitasking. So even as you said that, I was like, oh, I wonder what if I just didn't take my phone when I walk my dog? And I'm like, oh wait, no, but like that's when I'll do stories. I'll talk to my people and I'll respond to
Yeah.
messages. And on the surface, I know this is something as leaders we deal with. Like on the surface, it seems like that's a way to get the best out of, like to get the most out of my time. That's a way to make good use of my time. And something, again, I know I can say this because I know this experientially is, but actually, sometimes when I give myself that window for releasing and like marinating in myself, I actually get access to something that could be way more valuable than a reel that I do or a message that I respond to or an email, right?
You said that much better than I would have, but that's exactly it. That's exactly
Yeah.
it. It's
Uh-huh.
and sometimes sometimes they come with really, really business questions. Like
Yeah.
they can make a decision on
Uh-huh.
the segment of customers they want to target, or
Hmm.
on the best acquisition, channels they should tackle, etc. And so basically it's the same as with life coaching. It's about asking them the questions, so that they figure it out by themselves,
Hmm.
but with different angle and perspectives, and maybe asking, the candid question that because nobody's never ever done it differently, or because you're not in their shoes and you're not in their sector. I'm actually one of the few business coaches who don't specialize in terms of sector of industry.
Hmm.
Um, And I'm very proud of that because that allows me to suggest ways of doing things or ways of trying things that are not done in the sector that they're in because everybody's a copycat of everybody else. And
Right.
sometimes it's when you do things just a little bit differently, when you take that slightly different angle, that you open up to a whole new realm of possibilities.
Yeah. Listen, as I was saying, like that just felt like a little permission slip. So someone who's a general life coach, right? And all of the same, like niche is niche down, niche down, niche down, get specific. Who's your target
Yeah.
audience? Who's your ideal client avatar? And I'm like, humans with brains.
Yes.
Yeah. And listen, most business coaches are like, no, ma'am, like,
Yeah.
come on now.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, yeah. But to your point, because I can get really essential and foundational, right? Like and then you see the swap outs and you're like, I'm going to come at it from a different angle than somebody who is really niched into a specific thing. And of course, there's room for the place for people who are super niched, but I am just going to say, I took that as a permission slip, what you were saying there, that listen, whatever we bring, it helps us come at a different angle. And that's exactly right. So that might have been not been the takeaway from your message, but that's what I'm taking from that,
And
Laura.
and that's the great thing about sparring is that I say something and you understand something else, and that's perfectly fine.
Yes. Listen, that happens in coaching all the time. You're like, that's not what I meant by it, or that's not where I was going with it, but we're going to
But
trust wherever you took it. Love.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, so you're kind of talking about this, but you have a strategic lens that you bring to growth, but you don't skip the inner work. So how you were kind of painting a picture a little bit, but how do you blend the tactical and the transformational when you're working with your clients?
It really depends on what they come with first. Some
Hmm.
of them come with a foundational. Some of them know they need this,
Hmm.
and some of them they want somebody because they're alone in making decisions and they know the value of having somebody to be the sounding board
Hmm.
on business things.
Hmm.
So I start where they want to start. But
Hmm.
as I mentioned, if they come to me with a business problem, my first question is not going to be, I mean, first of all, I'm not going to give them answers.
Yeah.
And my first question is going to be, why do you think that's the problem?
Uh-huh.
And that's how you go down and you
Yeah.
go down and you go down.
Yep.
And generally, they're wrong about what the problem is. Generally,
Uh-huh.
I have to
Yeah.
admit.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I'm not the type of consultant. That's why I don't like the word consultant because, I don't do slides and I don't give the CEO what he wants to hear or she wants
Yeah.
to hear.
Uh-huh.
It's I've been called a benevolent brute, because I'm really, really, really honest with
Yeah.
people and
Uh-huh.
I don't cuddle.
Yeah.
I have one customer who asked me to be cuddled from time to time, so I
Uh-huh.
try not to be too hard on her. But even
Uh-huh.
when I'm asked to cuddle, it's difficult for me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's about where they come from. And then
Yeah.
I just take it from there, which is why there's no sequence. I can't do cohorts. I can't take
Yeah.
people all together through this journey because it is not a sequence journey. Everybody has its own path.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I just want to hit on the part where like sometimes you say the thing that they don't want to hear. And usually
Yeah.
like I'll give a gesture, like my clients know something. I'm like, okay, I'm about to give you some hard coaching here.
Yeah.
But this is where I think tapping into use of self, because I know experientially in those moments where I leave a session and I'm like, I don't even like my coach anymore. I don't like her. I don't want to be her friend. Actually, I don't want to talk to her again. And then in probably 24, 48 hours, you're like, aha, oh,
Mhm.
that was the thing that I need, right?
Mhm.
And so even as the coach and as the recipient, like learning to trust in that process that like, yeah, sometimes we're willing to say the thing that they think they don't want to hear for their greatest good. Right. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, even if it's not like they might leave that session being like, yeah, you're not my friend. We're just
Yeah.
not today. And you're like, okay, I know, but in 48 hours, sometimes they leave session and they're like, you just handed me back to me and you're the best thing. Okay. Sometimes they're like, we might not see you again.
Yeah.
And then,
Exactly.
yeah. And then it lands,
Exactly.
it percolates, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why in between sessions, on my on when I work with a founder, basically we have this relationship where I have my sessions, but in between we have a WhatsApp line and also a
Yep.
Notion where they can ask me questions and drop
Mm,
documents for me to read because I don't hold the pen, but I can proofread stuff in business
mhm.
wise.
Yep.
And so generally, when those sessions happen, because they do happen, the sessions where I'm not their friends anymore,
Yep.
they I won't hear from them for a couple of days, and then they'll come back.
Yeah.
And the way they come back would tell me whether they've had that epiphany or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's what I would also just offer up to listeners too, is sometimes like the trusting the process,
Yeah.
right? That like, because here's what I know, like from a mindset perspective, like your unconscious mind is always working. So even if consciously in the moment when you're like, ooh, I'm resistant to that. Well, first of all, if you feel a lot of resistance or nausea, that's probably exactly the thing.
Yeah.
That's usually right. That's a good sign. But
Yeah.
also just trusting, like, yeah, I might not like this, but if I can trust the process and let it sort of do its thing, it does work out. So, like, I just would offer that up for when we're doing change work or transformation work. It's not always super linear, which can be, again, hard for business leaders, decision makers, like high achiever, go giver, performance
Yeah.
types. We love a good A plus B equals C
Yeah.
linear. And sometimes it feels like a stall out, but it's
Yeah.
actually behind the scenes really doing some magic.
Absolutely. And you're right. Sometimes it plateaus. And I can and the leaders can get very frustrated, like feeling, but we did so well in the beginning, we went so far, but that's because we've hit some plateau because there are some things to untangle, underneath before we can move forward again. So
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Be patient with yourself. Okay, so now I want to talk about control because how do we talk about leadership without talking about control? We love on this podcast, we like to talk about the illusion of control. And I imagine that comes up with your clients. So, how do you help people distinguish between what they need to control, what they need to let go of, what's actually in their control, what's not really, but we like to pretend that it is and get very
Yeah,
busy? Yep.
that is definitely a big part of what we discuss is the things I control, the things I influence, and the things that are totally out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
And placing anything that is on their mind on that map is actually very difficult in the beginning. And
Uh-huh.
I don't introduce that tool to everybody at the same time, because the issue of control does not appear in the coaching at the same moment. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've gone, I think I've used it from like maybe 90% of the
Mm-hmm.
of the leaders I work with. And
Mm-hmm.
and if when they stop being coached, they keep using just that, to
Uh-huh.
me, it's a success because that is the thing where that is the one tool, knowing that it's not their fault, it's not in their control, but they can influence it, or it's totally not in their control. I live in Bordeaux, in France, so it's an area of wine, right? And because of the change in the weather, there've been a very bad crop last year. And I
Yeah.
was dealing with the leader of a vineyard. And she was very, 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 very upset with the bad crop and feeling, it was her responsibility, whereas it was just bad weather. I mean, there's not much you can do when the weather is actually, killing your crop. And so that was a very turning moment when she realized that this is what she can control, this is what she can influence, her staff and some of the decisions, maybe, with some products and stuff, but that, hail is not something you can control. It
Right.
just isn't.
Yeah.
And once she got that, she felt such a relief of, okay, so it wasn't my fault and I'm not a bad leader and I can go into this year's crop, feeling like I'm leading and not like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And like on one level, like you said, like she felt relief. Like one, it feels a lot better when you let go of the things you can't
Yeah,
control. But also, this is what I can find is like sometimes like a backdoor buy-in with leaders is when you are blaming yourself for stuff that's outside of your control, it is siphoning off so much of your power and energy. And
of
when you
course.
stop doing that, you have all of that you can repurpose to, okay, if I wasn't spinning out about something I couldn't control, if I reuse that mental and emotional load towards what I could control, then I come up with creative solutions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's a big
absolutely.
energy repurposing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So before I ask my very last question of you, Miss Laura, please tell the listeners where they can find you, follow you, how they connect with you, and the work that you do.
They can find me on LinkedIn, really. It's the best way to get in touch with me. I do post in French. My LinkedIn profile is obviously in English. I do post in French, but LinkedIn translation, I have a lot of clients in the US that tells me that my posts in English are very well translated. Um, so that's fine. And they can follow me there. And they can also, if they like Google Translate, they can read my newsletter,
Uh-huh.
which is in French. But again, Google Translate does it very well, which is a curation newsletter about tech, business, and innovation. It's a weekly one that goes on every Monday at 7.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. And Laura, for the question I like to ask all of my guests, what does it mean to you to live an unblocked life?
Freedom, obviously.
Yeah.
Freedom and freedom of knowing who I am and where I want to be, and not being constrained by social constructs. I mentioned to you in the pre-recording interview, I'm alone right now for 2 weeks at home because I made a deal with my then not husband yet,
Mhm.
that if he were to live with me, I would need 2 weeks alone every year,
Oh,
totally alone in my home.
yeah.
Like not 2 weeks where I go and he stays, 2 weeks where he goes and I stay. And
Yeah.
now we have a kid, and every year, 2 weeks. God bless my mother-in-law for taking them for 2 weeks, out of my hair every year. But this is living an unblocked life. I don't know many mothers who wouldn't feel guilt. And I don't feel guilt. I'm so happy when they're back, but
Yeah.
I don't feel guilt at all. And that's an unblocked life for me.
Ma'am, yes, that I'm so glad you shared that because like that was I was so delighted by you sharing that. And I think because so many levels to that, right? You're like, one, you ask for what you want. When we ask for what we want, we actually give ourselves the chance to get it.
To get it, yes.
Yeah, right. And I love the freedom that you're like, yeah, and permission to not feel guilty about wanting what you want.
Yeah,
Permission to
I
not
know.
make it mean anything about you as a mom, a wife, and anything other than a human who wants 2 weeks alone. My inner introvert like sees you. It's like Hunger Games style. Like like I see you, bless you, I applaud you, I salute
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Yay.
you.
Love all of that. Laura, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your time, your wisdom,
Thank you.
your expertise with us. This was really a delight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you.